I'm VJ Hamilton and welcome to the Autoimmune Reset, the place for you to learn how to thrive with autoimmune disease and feel empowered to take steps to transform your health to feel better than ever. You can start making changes today to improve your health. So with every episode, my mission is to share with you simple ways to up-level your diet and lifestyle with key learnings from my own journey reversing autoimmune disease and inspirational stories from those who have reset their autoimmune symptoms and are now thriving in life. I suffered from autoimmune disease for over 25 years and now I live symptom-free, and I wish the same for you as well. So thank you for being here and sharing this time with me. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Autoimmune Reset podcast. I'm your host, VJ Hamilton. I'm a registered nutritionist, certified functional medicine practitioner, and founder of the Autoimmune Nutrition Clinic. And today we're going to talk about something I see all the time in clinic, thyroid issues that don't make sense. And I know this was an issue in my own health, because you might have gone to your GP and they've said that your thyroid results are fine. And I often have clients who will come to me, they will tell me that they have had their thyroid function tested and that everything is fine, yet they still wake up exhausted, their hair is thinning, and their brain just feels like treacle really. Or there is another scenario where you've been diagnosed with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, you're taking medication, but you still don't feel like you. If that's you, I want you to know it's not in your head. Your thyroid might not be the root of the problem. It might simply be the signal that something deeper is out of balance. So today we're diving into 5 systems that most often disrupt thyroid health, which are the gut, the liver, the adrenals, sex hormones, and the mitochondria. And I'll share a bit about my own thyroid story too, because it's one of the reasons I do the work I do. When I started making improvements for my health, before I formally trained as a nutritionist and functional medicine practitioner, I started to experience relentless fatigue. And I had been experiencing that on and off for over 15 years. I was eating pretty well at the time, probably not enough nutrients. I was trying to prioritize exercise around feeling chronically fatigued, but I just hit a wall at that point. I'd wake up feeling heavy, my mind was foggy, I'd get brain fog all the time. I struggled with motivation because I just felt so fatigued. And I remember thinking, even in my early 30s, if this is what getting older feels like, then I cannot do this for the rest of my life. I just thought it was who I was, and that was just part of the progression of what I was dealing with at the time. I went to the doctors and I had my thyroid tested, and at that point they were pretty good at testing more than just TSH, and I was tested for TSH, T3, T4 and my antibody levels, and my TSH was pretty high. It was still within the reference range, but when I'm working as a clinician now, if I'd have seen a TSH at the level that I had, I would be suspecting that something else was going on. My T3 was low, which is the active hormone when it comes to your thyroid. And my thyroid antibodies that can cause autoimmune thyroid conditions like Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, which can cause hyperthyroidism, were normal. So at least on paper, from a medical perspective, my doctor just said to me, it's fine, we'll keep an eye on it. But I knew something wasn't fine. My body was trying to tell me something, and I realized that conventional testing was showing me the what and not the why. And I did go on to see an endocrinologist at that point. It was good. They did refer me. I was in my GP clinic. They had made a whole case around me, and I was quite pushy. I would ring them often. I was at the point where I just wanted to make some changes for my health and I needed support. And I was also working with a nutritionist who gave me that confidence and support and was helping me to ask the right questions of my doctor as well. So I went to see an endocrinologist, and that was when I was diagnosed with post-viral chronic fatigue syndrome. But really, even though I did have antibodies to certain viruses like cytomegalovirus, they had diagnosed me with that because they didn't know where else to put me. I always thought that my thyroid was probably part of the picture, whether it was a symptom or the cause, and so did the nutritionist that I was working with at the time. And it led me down a rabbit hole, and I started learning about that hypothalamus pituitary axis, which is also referred to the HPA axis. I started learning about adrenal function. I was learning about the gut immune crosstalk that happens, how nutrients are so important for signaling in the body, and how all of these interact with the thyroid. And I eventually realized that it probably had nothing to do with my thyroid itself. It was trying to protect me. It was actually my body was slowing things down because I was burning out. That understanding completely helped me how I approached my thyroid health, and actually how I help clients today when they clearly have symptoms of hypothyroidism, but their TSH is still within the reference range. So let's talk about why do so many people fall through the cracks when it comes to thyroid health, and that is to do with the thyroid testing. It's limited. In conventional medicine, you often get one marker tested, which is TSH, especially now, and maybe T4 if you're lucky, which is like a pro-hormone to the active hormone T3. You need to convert T4 to T3 for it to have that effect in the body. And T3 is important for so many biological reactions. It helps with your metabolism, it helps with hair growth, it helps with blood sugar regulation, it helps with how you are able to manage your weight. It's so important, and that's why you get all these symptoms when it's not working appropriately, or if you're not producing enough T3 hormone. If you have your TSH and T4 levels tested, that tells you almost nothing about this conversion. It doesn't tell you anything about the receptor sensitivity at the cellular level. If your body isn't able to use the hormone at the cellular level, then you're not going to get the benefit of it either. It's not telling you whether you're inflamed, and that can have an impact on your thyroid hormones or your nutrient status, because thyroid synthesis is so important and is reliant on many different nutrients, including iron, selenium, the B vitamins. These are all so important with the production of thyroid hormone. And even when the numbers do look off, they don't tell you the why. For example, a high TSH might mean the gland is struggling, or it might mean the brain is trying to compensate for low conversion of T3 to T4, because there's this amazing feedback loop in the body where if you have a high amount of T4, then it feedbacks to the brain that you have enough thyroid hormones. You make less TSH, so your TSH would look normal in that scenario, but you could still have low T3 at that point because your body isn't able to convert it. You might even have normal T3, but if your body isn't able to use that T3 at the cellular level, then that can also cause a problem. So low T3 could mean poor liver function, it could mean that you're feeling highly stressed, or that your mitochondria is slowing down, those energy production units in the cell. They're not able to produce the energy for you. So rather than looking at the thyroid in isolation, we need to ask, what's influencing it? What systems upstream are creating the environment that the thyroid has to operate in? That's where these 5 systems come in, because together they shape how your thyroid behaves every single day. So let's look at the first system, which is the gut immune axis. And let's start with the gut, because it's where the immune story begins. Roughly 70% of your immune cells are housed in your intestinal lining. If that barrier becomes compromised through stress, infections, food reactions, or toxins, the immune system goes on high alert, and in genetically susceptible people, that can spill over into immune activity. In Hashimoto's, for example, antibodies start targeting thyroid peroxidase or thyroglobulin. Though thyroid peroxidase is an enzyme which is important for the production of the thyroid hormones, and thyroglobulin is the backbone to those thyroid hormones. When those enzymes are targeted, that is going to mean that your thyroid gland is affected and that you're not able to produce as much of those hormones. But the trigger often originates in the gut. In practice, I see this all the time. Clients with long-term bloating, they might have IBS or have been diagnosed with IBS, or have food sensitivities, often have parallel thyroid issues. When we run functional stool tests or metabolomic testing, we'll see dysbiosis, we'll see low short-chain fatty acids, these important metabolites that are produced by the gut bacteria that help with immune regulation. or overgrowths of bacteria that you wouldn't expect to find in the gut, like Citrobacter, Bacillus, Enterobacter, Streptococcus, Staphylococcus, these things that we wouldn't expect to find growing in high amounts in the gut, and they can drive inflammation. So once we repair that gut by improving digestion, we can rebalance the microbes, especially when we know there are overgrowths of certain bacteria. And we can use nutrients like glutamine, which helps with leaky gut, zinc carnosine, which can support the gut barrier, and sodium butyrate, or eating foods that help with butyrate production, which is a short-chain fatty acids. Thyroid antibodies often begin to form naturally, and the thyroid finally gets to breathe again. Next is the liver and detox pathways. The liver isn't just your detox organ, it's also your thyroid's biochemical factory. It converts around 40% of that pro-hormone T4 into active T3. So the first place I'm looking when somebody has a conversion issue, especially if they've done testing with me, is to look at their liver health, because your liver clears out used hormones, and it also filters environmental toxins that otherwise burden the endocrine system. When the liver is sluggish due to nutrient deficiencies, stress, alcohol or toxin exposure, the conversion of T to T3 slows down. You might have plenty of thyroid hormone in circulation, but not enough active T3 reaching the cells. Supporting liver health doesn't mean doing harsh detoxes either. It means giving the liver what it needs to work effectively, and everyone is going to be different in this department dependent on what is going on in your body. Reducing your environmental burden is key to this as well. We can support detoxification, but if we still have a high environmental load or a high environmental toxin burden, that can impact us on a daily basis, whether it be mold, it might be off-gassing from new furniture, it could be something that you're experiencing from a workplace. You need to understand where your exposures are, but then we also want to support the liver so it works efficiently, because we are designed to be exposed to some toxins, but when our liver isn't working efficiently, then they can build up in the body. So in order to support the liver, cruciferous vegetables are particularly important, especially broccoli sprouts, because they include sulforaphane, which doesn't only help to detoxify toxins, but it can help with these xenoestrogens, or fake hormones that we get from certain products like plastics and fragrances that are unnatural, and it can help with that part of detoxification. And this is especially important if you have imbalances in your hormones as well. Magnesium is particularly important to support enzyme activity. Most people know magnesium can help with peristalsis and help with gut motility, or magnesium can help calm down the nervous system, but it does so much more. It is a cofactor in over 400 different reactions in the body, so we need to make sure that we have sufficient magnesium levels, and it is displaced by other minerals and other nutrients as well. So if you are taking supplements with other nutrients in, make sure that you are taking magnesium. Obviously work with a practitioner before you take any supplements, because they can be contraindicated with certain medications and certain conditions, but it is one to bear in mind. Choline and taurine also help to promote bile flow. I find a lot of women in the 40s, 50s, 60s can have what we call gallbladder sludge, which can accumulate over time. And bitter foods can really help to release this, but supporting our bile flow is important. And our choline is hard to get from foods that aren't from animals. Eggs are a really good source of choline, but we can get them from other animal products as well. So be mindful of that if you are vegan or vegetarian. And selenium can help to manage oxidative stress within the thyroid gland. And there are studies to show that selenium can help to bring down thyroid antibodies as well. So when we gently support these pathways, people often notice small miracles, improved mood, and it's the thyroid liver conversion coming back online and helping with that. And I've been working with a client for a long period of time, and she has had very high antibodies, and we've tried different protocols along the way. Supporting her liver has been extremely helpful, and her thyroid antibodies are now the lowest that they have ever been, just working on that one system. rather than thinking about the thyroid itself. She's already taking levothyroxine, but we realize that we need to focus more on these other symptoms, because a lot of the time people think, oh, I've been diagnosed with Hashimoto's and I'm taking levothyroxine, everything has been dealt with. But it's not just about taking T4, which is that pro-hormone. It's about how well are you converting it, how well are your cells responding it, how well is your body transporting it. These are all important factors when it comes to your thyroid health, regardless of whether you are taking medication, because that's just one aspect of it. It's not just about how much hormone you're producing. Next, we have the adrenal stress axis, and this is perhaps the most underappreciated of them all. Cortisol is your survival hormone. In the short term, it helps you cope with stress, but when it stays high for too long, it starts to blunt thyroid activity. It suppresses TSH, it can slow the T4 to T3 conversion, and increases reverse T3, which blocks receptors so that your cells can't hear thyroid messages properly anymore. And again, this goes back to testing. A lot of the time we're getting tested for T4 or T3, but we need to understand how much free T3 we have, and that's another marker that you can get tested, because the body has a process where it's trying to protect you, but it converts that active T3 hormone into reverse T3. And that can make you feel like you have hypothyroidism, even when you are producing enough T3. And I remember this in my own life. I was running on coffee. I was drinking so many coffees a day to just stay awake. I was working late. I was consistently switched on. I wasn't really doing much to recover other than when I was crashing out, which isn't the same thing. And my thyroid results didn't look terrible, but I felt terrible. And when I started focusing on rhythm, waking up with natural light, eating breakfast with protein rather than skipping breakfast, which I was doing a lot of the time. And now I experiment with intermittent fasting. I do intuitive eating, that's what I call it. So I eat when I feel hungry. But back then I really needed to eat food because I didn't want to put extra stress on my body. And as much as fasting can have that beneficial effect with cell regeneration and autophagy, it is a stress. And there's a moment when your body doesn't need more stress because it's just going to make things worse. So we need to be mindful of that. Winding down at night, having that consistent bedtime. And I use adaptogens like rhodiola. Some people use ashwagandha. I personally prefer rhodiola because it's less likely to cause stimulation of the immune system. And my T3 levels started to rise again, and I felt so much better. At that point, I could hardly keep my eyes open after lunch, and I'm sure part of that was blood sugar regulation, which has connected to your thyroid levels as well. And I noticed that once I started working on my thyroid health, I started feeling so much better and my energy came back. We can actually measure this through the cortisol awakening response. And that's the natural 30-minute rise in cortisol after waking. And this is tested for in the Dutch Plus test that I run. It's a sex hormone test, but it also looks at your cortisol levels and it looks at your cortisol awakening response, because more and more research is showing that your cortisol awakening response is a better marker for your HPA axis, for your hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, and how well that is regulated. And a healthy curve shows that your circadian rhythm is intact, and a flat curve tells us your HPA axis is dysregulated. And I've worked with people before who are feeling fine, they're doing loads in their life, they're actually just running on adrenaline. And when we've done this, we've shown that they have a very flat curve. And what's fascinating is that in research, mindfulness, relaxation, and stress management interventions do change cortisol levels. It's not just something we talk about. It makes such a big difference. So if you're not doing something for relaxation, finding joy in your life, something that you're passionate about, then it's certainly worth starting to think about doing that. A 2023 meta-analysis study found they reduced cortisol with a medium to large effect, especially when measured through that awakening response when they started bringing these mindful activities into their life. So lifestyle interventions literally recalibrate your stress response. This is why I tell clients, you can't supplement your way out of burnout. You have to slow down and make some changes to your lifestyle as well. Next are the sex hormones and the ovaries, because your reproductive hormones are extremely important when it comes to your thyroid, yet it can be complicated. Estrogen increases thyroxine binding globulin, which ties up thyroid hormone. So there's less free T3 and T4 available. So it has that knock-on effect. And then low progesterone, which is common in chronic stress and perimenopause, reduces the thyroid receptor sensitivity, which means your body isn't responding as much to that thyroid hormone. So you're going to need more of it for your body to respond to it. And that can mean that you can have perfect test results when it comes to your thyroid, but your cells aren't responding properly. And that's what we call thyroid resistance, a bit like insulin resistance. And I see this a lot around menopause, postpartum, or after long periods of hormonal contraception. And these transitions show how the body perceives and utilizes thyroid hormone. So supporting estrogen clearance through the liver, which we talked about earlier, gently rebuilding progesterone with vitamins like vitamin B6, zinc, magnesium, healthy fats, and reducing stress can completely change the picture. And when women stabilize their hormones, they often notice the thyroid symptoms ease, even without changing their medication. And when I'm working with clients who are going through hormone changes and transitions, but also having thyroid symptoms, it isn't about which system should you address. It's about addressing both systems together, because that's going to be where you see the biggest difference. Lastly, we have the mitochondria and cellular energy. The mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cells. Thyroid hormones act through mitochondria to generate energy. If those mitochondria are damaged or depleted, you can have plenty of hormone but still feel flat. And here we focus on nutrient cofactors, which are so important to the mitochondria, such as iron, selenium, alpha lipoic acid, and B vitamins. We also work on lowering oxidative stress with antioxidants. Selenium is very helpful here. And improving blood sugar stability, because swings in glucose create oxidative stress inside the mitochondria. So actually regulating your blood sugar, making sure you're eating protein with every meal, not eating a lot of refined carbohydrates or sugar, and moving after eating more fiber. These are all ways that we can help to regulate our blood sugar, because when the mitochondria energy production improves, people describe it as that light switch moment where the fog lifts, the colour comes back to them, and they start to feel alive again. And I've certainly noticed this with some clients. There's a particular product that I like to support mitochondrial health that I use, and when clients have been using it for a couple of months, they see such an improvement in their health. And some people, I'm included, are more reliant on these mitochondrial nutrients, and sometimes we just need that extra boost, especially if we're doing training or we have more stress in our life at a certain point. When it comes to these systems, it might be that mitochondria is a system you need to support. It might be that sex hormones is a factor for you. It might be that you need to support liver detox. And what I mean by this is that it might not just be one of these areas that you need to support. There might be multiple things that you need to work on step by step, or it might just be one area. So it really depends when it comes to clients. Sometimes we're working on all of this. Sometimes we're working on just one component. A lot of the time we are working on the gut, because a lot of clients come to me when they have an autoimmune condition, and if there are imbalances in the gut, it's really hard to make those meaningful changes to their health for the long term. So when we put all this together, the gut, liver, adrenals, hormone, and mitochondria, you begin to see why the thyroid struggles. It's not a lone organ that randomly fails. It's responding to the body's environment. That's why in clinic, my approach is never just thyroid support. We start by re-establishing safety in the body, stabilizing blood sugar, reducing stress load, replenishing those key nutrients, repairing the gut, and gently supporting detoxification. Then and only then does the thyroid start to find its natural rhythm again. And for anyone listening who feels like they've tried everything, please don't lose hope. Thyroid healing isn't linear, but it is possible. I've done it in my own health, and I've seen it with clients as well. When you shift from suppression to support, the body often surprises you with how well it can recover. And my mantra is, when it comes to my body, is that my body has the amazing ability to heal. And it really does when we give it the right nutrients, and we give it time to restore and relax and recalibrate. So that's your reminder today. Your thyroid is a messenger. It's not the enemy. And when it's underperforming, it's signaling that one or more of those 5 systems needs attention. So start small, whether it be a better breakfast, an early bedtime, more sunlight, less stimulation overall, or consistent nourishment. Those habits sound simple, but they're what we can do to get our endocrine system back in rhythm. If you'd like a step-by-step framework to begin rebalancing those systems, you can download my free guide, the Autoimmunity Recovery Plan. It's free and walks you through the foundations for calming inflammation, restoring energy, and supporting your thyroid naturally. You'll find the link in the show notes. So thank you for joining me on the Autoimmune Reset. And remember, your body isn't broken, it's communicating with you. And when we listen to what it's asking for, recovery becomes not only possible, but inevitable. Have a fantastic week ahead, and I'll look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Autoimmune Reset. I really hope you enjoyed the discussion, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. And if you liked it, I would hugely appreciate a review on iTunes, as it helps me understand what you like about the podcast and to help share the information with more people. I'm excited to speak to you next time. And remember, you have the power to take the reins on your health. So keep the faith and celebrate the small wins. Until next time.